The first film from Demon Slayer's Infinity Castle trilogy is all set to be released in Japan this July, and in September, most of the other countries around the world. Of course, viewers and readers alike are excited knowing that some of the most insane battles are about to take place. Action aside, the layout and nature of the Infinity Castle itself is quite fascinating. While not sentient, it is a castle that's seemingly never-ending and has a layout that keeps changing under the command of the biwa-playing demon known as Nakime. As such, while the Demon Slayers do face great troubles against the demons, the castle gives them a hard time as well, while also being a safe haven for the demon race. This video is going to be heavily centered around the Infinity Castle, and with spoilers too, considering our viewer base is of the manga readers and the fact that we've covered a great deal of the Demon Slayer manga before. The purpose of this video is to explain the Infinity Castle in depth with anecdotal examples and the abilities of both Nakime and Muzan to understand how they impact or tie into the castle itself. Before getting into this video, we'd like to make a very small request to our viewers. Please subscribe to our channel, like and comment on our videos, and hit the bell icon to be notified whenever we upload new marvelous content. We'd be grateful to you, and we hope to bring you the best nerdy content in the future, so without further ado, let's get right into it. What is the Infinity Castle? How does it work? The Infinity Castle is a very interesting concept. The primary antagonist, Muzan, uses the place as his lair and base of operations, calling forth the demons, more specifically the 12 demon moons, to address them if and when necessary. But the castle is not one that exists like a regular structure. Instead, it in itself is a pocket dimension where the laws of physics don't apply. In terms of appearance, the castle looks like a case of traditional Japanese architecture meets five-star hotel. Wooden rooms warmly lit with lamps with long halls on the surface. The interiors of the castle, specifically its corridors, have the ability to move within this alternate dimension as its existence is not natural. In fact, one of the demons under Muzan, Nakime, uses her blood demon art to generate and control the castle. This makes the nature of the castle unlike that of any normal structure within the show, explaining why it exists within a pocket dimension in the first place. One of the most standout features of the Infinity Castle is its warped gravity, allowing demons to stand in any way they deem suitable. They can stand normally or on the ceilings or walls, moving in ways physically impossible even for demons. The castle also feels never-ending with its continuous crisscross stairs and extremely long corridors, always looking infinite, as the name Infinity Castle would suggest. These elements to the castle, like the demons within them, avoid the laws of physics too, existing in unusual positions and looking upside down or diagonally, among other absurd positionings, at least from an architectural standpoint. All in all, the Infinity Castle is full of innumerable rows and columns, mimicking a kaleidoscope-like maze in design. It's truly a sight to behold. Our introduction to the Infinity Castle as an audience. We get a proper glimpse into the workings of the castle during two instances up until the Infinity Castle arc. One is when the lower moons are summoned after the defeat of the lower rank 5 demon Rui, and the second is when the upper moons are summoned after the defeat of the upper rank 6 Gyutaro. In the first instance, we notice how the demons suddenly materialize into the space out of thin air. They themselves don't understand how they came to be there. Lower moon 6 even spells it out. Spotting Nakime in the perceived center of the establishment, he assumes that the castle is part of her blood demon art, which we now know is true. With every strum of Nakime's biwa, the space moved, teleporting the demons within to any position within her range. Meanwhile, the castle is the place of residence for Muzan, and it's the base for his experiments, the very place where he keeps up with his work of trying to find a cure for his aversion to sunlight. And because the castle doesn't exist in the physical world, the demons never have to worry about having to hide from the sun. To top that off, demon slayers can't hunt them in the castle. The only demons present there, apart from Muzan and Nakime, are the 12 demon moons, provided they're summoned. Once they are, they'll automatically appear within the castle, no matter where they are, as every demon is connected to Muzan due to them having Muzan's blood flowing through their system. The meeting with the lower ranks concluded with lower rank 1, Enmu, getting a stronger dose of Muzan's blood, while the rest of the demons were annihilated, as Muzan believed that he didn't need the lower moons anymore since they were susceptible to being killed by demon slayers. Once this was done, Enmu was teleported to a completely unknown location, presumably far away from the castle, as a door opened up from above and quite literally dropped Enmu on the streets before it faded away. Based on this, one can assume that the range of the castle encompasses a majority, if not all, of Japan. The castle next appears in the first episode of the Swordsmith Village arc. The first demon we witness is Akaza, initially standing upside down and then being switched to an upright position. He then falls hundreds of stories, going down the warped halls and corridors on his way to the upper rank meeting. In the process, he falls past a palace with a water guard. The palace initially looks like the bottom, only for the castle to prove itself as a bottomless one, as Akaza continues to fall. He was ultimately taken high above the columns of the castle, across the traditional Japanese doors that continued to open by themselves to transport the demon, and was then brought to a maze-like area with pillars towering above him. This meeting is different from the previous one, as this one involves the upper moons in one space while Muzan is in his study. They seem to be communicating with one another due to the telepathic link between them. Muzan is disappointed in the upper ranks, not just because of Gyotaro's defeat, but because no one has been able to find the blue spider lily, which is what Muzan needs to become immune to sunlight. To please him, the upper rank 5 Gyoko claims that he is different from the rest and can bring Muzan the necessary information. At that moment, however, the scene shifts to Muzan holding Gyoko's head while in his study. As fast as Muzan is, teleportation is not within his moveset, which tells us that Gyoko was teleported to Muzan's hand and out of his pot by Nakime. Meanwhile, the torso of the demon is still attached to the pot and bloodied all over due to Nakime teleporting only the head. After Muzan is done addressing Gyoko, we see them standing in the same space upside down. Nakime strums her biwa, and Gyoko's head falls from Muzan's hand and returns to where Doma, Akaza, and Hantengu are within the castle. The doors to Muzan's room close and everything around vanishes. With Gyoko and Hantengu being assigned their mission in the Swordsmith village, they too are transported there with a strum of the biwa. Doma is sent back to his place where he runs his cult. Kokushibo vanishes into thin air and Akaza is seen leaving, but we don't get to see this happen with Nakime's interference. It is possible that certain high-ranking demons can leave the place on their own accord, but they need to be summoned to arrive at the castle. After the Swordsmith village arc, Obanai, that is the Serpent Hashira, and Sanemi, the Wind Hashira, get information on a spot where innocent people have been disappearing to. They try to locate it and come across a rundown old Japanese castle brimming with demons and their human abductees. During the showdown between the two Hashiras and the several demons, the Wind Hashira jumps from the roof to take down a demon and suddenly finds himself flying over the Infinity Castle. Within the castle were several demons. Before the Hashira could land the killing blow, a door closed on his face and he landed on the space where they had initially begun their fight. And right now, we're about to witness the great battles that are supposed to take place within the Infinity Castle. With Muzan weakened by Kagaya Ubuyashiki's sacrifice and Tamayo's poisons, the Demon Slayers have been sent to the Infinity Castle, giving Muzan time to regenerate while they have to engage with the other demons, more specifically the upper ranks. Currently, the castle has manifested in an area deep under the ground of some city, far away from the Ubuyashiki mansion. Despite the mansion being extremely well hidden, Nakime was able to bring all the Demon Slayers to this pocket dimension, possibly because of Muzan's presence and his telepathic signal to her to send the Demon Slayers to the castle. We've noticed in the manga the difficulties the Demon Slayers face in trying to navigate the moving space and the unnaturally altering gravity of the castle. And they're not the only ones to experience this, as the lower moon demons were also visibly out of their element within the castle. Only the upper ranks, specifically Akaza, moved around with relative ease, even though they hadn't been to the castle in 113 years since the death of the last upper rank. We don't really get to see much of what the lesser demons do in the castle, as they're probably there for some task or because the castle acts as a safe haven for demons from the sun. The creator of the castle, Nakime. As we've mentioned, the demon responsible for the existence and manipulation of the Infinity Castle is Nakime. While always loyal to Muzan and one of his most valuable assets as she serves directly under him due to the castle, Nakime gets a promotion by the time of the Infinity Castle arc, rising from being a regular rankless demon to an upper rank 4. Muzan must have really lucked out, as one of his demons ended up manifesting a blood demon art that made things much easier for him. For every demon, the style of their blood demon art is correlated to the life they have led as a human being. For example, Akaza's blood demon art incorporates his Soryu-style martial arts, as that's what he used to practice and take pride in as a human. Kokushibo's blood demon art is tied closely to his swordsmanship as he was training to be a samurai. Similarly, Nakime manifests and controls the Infinity Castle as a former biwa player. As a human, she was an amateur musician living paycheck to paycheck. Things got worse as she was married to a good-for-nothing man who squandered her money and savings as a result of his gambling addiction and had no contribution in making their lives better. Due to Nakime's poor financial status, she had only one presentable kimono that she could sport for a professional biwa performance. But one day, she learned that her husband had gambled her only good kimono away. Naturally, Nakime was enraged and killed her husband using a hammer. With time running out, she was forced to rush onto stage wearing her tattered kimono that was absolutely inappropriate for a performance. She was chided by the crowd for her clothing and her shabby appearance, destroying her already horrible state of mind. To To top it off, she was dealing with the guilt of murdering her husband, so when she began to perform, her hands shook from nervousness. However, she ended up giving a spectacular performance as a result of the tension, and the audience was enthralled to the point that they wanted an encore. This led to Nakime being paid generously, leading to her always committing murder before performing a big show, and this only resulted in her performances getting better and better. At some point, one of her new targets became Muzan. Of course, she failed, but Muzan was greatly impressed by her searching skills. As such, he gave her a dose of his blood and made her a demon. Over time, she grew stronger and stronger by consuming more humans and developed her blood demon art, and each component of her art is closely tied to her human light. Starting with the castle, the Infinity Castle Nakime manifests is very traditionally Japanese with tatami mats, shojis or room dividers with translucent mats as doors, lamps, long corridors, halls, and wooden flooring. This ties itself to the art of biwa-playing by being very traditionally Japanese in nature, starting from the sound of the instrument to the spaces where biwas were professionally played. Naturally, the castle Nakime would create was meant to be very stereotypically Japanese. Coming to her biwa, Nakime seems to have lost her biwa playing skills as a demon, considering we see her only strumming her instrument with off-key plucks and using it as a means to manipulate the castle. The interesting thing to be noted here is that because it is part of her blood demon art, the biwa Nakime plays is now made from her flesh itself, as is the case with a demon's weapon of choice. In fact, had the biwa not been created from her flesh, she might not have been able to use it to manipulate the castle. In terms of appearance, the biwa is very identical to the one Nakime used to play as a human girl with its short-necked lute. And just like any other biwa, hers is four-stringed and is played using a bachi as the pick. Like her biwa, her bachi is also made from her flesh, going against its overt wooden appearance. The ability to fashion an instrument with her flesh falls under the flesh manipulation category of demonic abilities, similar to how Kokushibo's sword and Doma's fans are made from their flesh. And finally, we come to the main reason why Muzan chose to make her a demon, her ability to gather information and search. Because she's tasked with teleporting demons and later the human demon slayers from one place to the Infinity Castle and vice versa, Nakime needs to be good with searching, bringing us to her fantastic extrasensory perception. This is an ability boasted by demons and good demon slayers alike, but Muzan aside, Nakime seems to be a cut above the rest as she can easily track down the demons and instantly teleport them into the Infinity Castle in the blink of an eye. Once within the castle, she can obviously sense their presence 24/7 as they are literally within her lair. This perceptive ability comes into play in instances such as her transporting Akaza to the upper ranks meeting from the area in which he had appeared within the castle. When Sanemi found himself falling into the castle during his and Obanai's search for the randomly disappearing people, the castle began to shut down as it sensed the presence of the demon slayers and vanished from the location. Based on this, one would assume that she can randomly transport any demon slayer from wherever they are to the castle, allowing Muzan to kill them, especially with Tanjiro, as Muzan really wanted him dead thanks to his Hanafuda earrings, which were passed down from Yorichi Sugikuni, the one and only demon slayer who was able to completely overpower Muzan with little difficulty. But that never happens because her ability, most probably, can only work for and with demons. She seems to have been capable of transporting the demon slayers to her castle right at the beginning of the Infinity Castle arc due to them being present around Muzan. But when a demon slayer is in her castle, she has complete awareness of their presence, and she uses this ability to separate the Mist Hashira from the Stone Hashira to bring the former in the presence of the upper rank one, Kokushibo. Towards the end, she even escorts a regenerated Muzan out so that he can face Tanjiro and the Giyu. There are situations where we see demons randomly appearing in front of other demons, such as Muzan catching an escaping lower rank 3 or Kokushibo appearing out of thin air to cut off Akaza's fists. However, these are not examples of Nakime's doings and are a result of the demon's speed. Nakime's new moveset has the Upper Rank 4. Becoming the Upper Rank 4 gave her newer abilities as she got more of Muzan's blood and subsequently grew stronger. She acquired the power of eye detachment, allowing her to detach several, if not limitless, eyeballs from her body. This allows her to spy on others without having to physically do it or moving from her place, and gives her fantastic range. This ability is also not limited to within the Infinity Castle, as this is how she was able to help Muzan find the Ubuyashiki mansion, even though Kagaya had gone to extreme lengths to hide his place of residence from not just the Demon King, but even the Hashiras in the Demon Slayer Corps, bar Gyome. Similar to her extrasensory perception, this ability also seems to be connected to Nakime's searching skills. She could even strum her biwa and switch which eyeball she's currently looking through. If an eyeball is damaged enough, it would disintegrate on the spot instead of regenerating, as being detached meant that it could not benefit from Nakime's demonic regeneration. Another ability she acquired is hair manipulation, the power to manipulate hair hair is a common ability we've seen across several female characters in Japanese entertainment, such as Kaguya Otsutsuki in Naruto, Acrobatic Silky in Dandadan, and one of Junji Ito's characters named Chiemi. Nakime could extend her hair and root them to the walls of the Infinity Castle, using it as the nervous system to pass the information acquired from her detached eyeballs to herself. In fact, all the information would be processed via her hair. This also allowed her to manipulate her hundreds of eyeballs across vast distances. The scale of the Infinity Castle created by Nakime is even greater than the endless fortress we perceive it as. It's not just a cornucopia of traditional Japanese rooms, it also has separate outdoorsy spaces such as the ornate castle with the water garden that Akaza fell through, the open room filled with pillars where Kokushibo fights Gyome, Muichiro, Genya, and Sanemi, as well as the small garden where Doma fights Shinobu and then Inosuke and Kanao. It is possible that she can create entire rooms as she pleases, and due to her nature as a biwa player, tends to go for a Japanese-style one. Throughout everything, Nakime is the epicenter of the fortress, with the Infinity Castle manifesting around her. But because the phenomenon takes place in a pocket dimension, it's not visible to humans unless there's an intentional entry or exit to the castle. For example, when Sanemi found its entrance, it was less about him hitting the jackpot and more about the entrance having been made to be visible intentionally, as several low-level demons were constantly accessing the castle as they were abducting humans. When it comes to teleportation, Nakime does not randomly bring demons into the castle. She only does it when Muzan gives her the order. This means that while she can do it without Muzan asking, her nature as a demon does not allow her to operate outside Muzan's playbook, as she has been manufactured to be supremely loyal to her creator. Hypothetically, if she were to bring in demons of her own accord, she might have been able to kill a stronger demon, but she also would not be taken down by one due to her absolute control over the castle. During the upper rank meeting, she was able to send Gyoko's dismembered head to Muzan, and this was back when Nakime wasn't even in the upper ranks. Of course, Gyoko, being a demon, could and did regenerate, but it was still unlikely for her to successfully behead an extremely powerful demon. After all, she is somewhat invincible while within her domain. Nakime's use of the Infinity Castle as a weapon. We see Nakime adopt a more offensive stance during the Infinity Castle arc when she battles Mitsuri and Obanai, that is, the Love Hashira and the Serpent Hashira respectively. Around this time, Nakime is stronger than before, considering she's an upper rank 4 demon here. Mitsuri had previously fared well against the former upper rank 4, that is, Hantengu, and the battle should have been easier with Obanai by her side, but because it took place within the castle, the two Hashiras were at an overwhelming disadvantage. In terms of pure strength and speed, Nakime does not physically do much, but due to the high concentration of Muzan's blood within her, she has the ability to do so, as seen by her being able to react and evade Mitsuri and Obanai's attacks, with both Hashiras boasting immense speed. In fact, Mitsuri's whip-like katana and Obanai's serpent-style attacks come with a type of non-linear motion that should be harder to dodge than a stereotypical slash, but Nakime manages well against both without putting in much effort. Her mode of offense within a battle is the alteration of the layout of the Infinity Castle, making it hard for her opponents to move or land their attacks. She changes the rooms into gigantic pillars and hurls them at her enemies to crush them. She creates bottomless openings by removing the ground from her feet in an attempt to make her opponent fall, as seen with Mitsuri. While her tatami portals were generally used as a means of transport to drop the demons to separate locations or help Muzan locomote, Nakime could use it in battle, as seen with her creating tatami portals to negate Mitsuri's attacks. She even uses her hair rooted to the rooms not just as her nervous system, but to simultaneously control several rooms together, while normally, each strum on the biwa would alter only one aspect of the Infinity Castle, making a battle against her impossible. But this move causes her to become immobile, preventing her from being physically able to react to Mitsuri and Obanai's attacks. But she deals with this issue by foiling their attempts. In fact, the battle against Nakime is the only one where the Hashiras or Demon Slayers don't get a clear win, even though other Demon Slayers have fought tougher enemies such as Akaza, Doma, and Kokushibo, and this is all due to Nakime's complete control over the environment. This also led to Nakime being the last upper rank standing. Naturally, Nakime could not be defeated by traditional combative means. She needed her perception destroyed, which is where Lady Tamayo's second-in-command, Yushiro, came into play. Because his blood demon art of using paper talismans and blindfolds was fantastic for masking to the point that he had masked Tamayo's base of operations in Asakusa from Muzan, he tied his talisman blindfold around Nakime's eyes, taking away the latter's efficiency at controlling her eyeball detachments as well as the castle, by extension, allowing Mitsuri and Obanai to head out for the battle against Muzan. In fact, Yushiro put Nakime's mind under his control using hypnosis during this time. This also gave Yushiro access to Nakime's blood demon art, as he was controlling her mind and vision, and used the ability to control the castle to send the demon slayers to the surface. In fact, Yushiro tries to use the Infinity Castle against Muzan for the attack of the demon slayers against the Demon King, but Muzan also has the ability to take over Nakime's mind, as she has been made from his blood. This begins a duel of wills between Muzan and Yushiro, and the latter holds supremely well. But when the demon slayers begin to attack Muzan, he has no choice but to lose the battle for Nakime. Meanwhile, the castle has spiraled out of control, and Yushiro begins to use this to his advantage, changing the battlefield to make Muzan fall. Ultimately, Muzan realizes that he cannot take back Nakime, as he now has to engage the demon slayers in a battle, and crushes Nakime's head so that Yushiro cannot use the Infinity Castle against him. Muzan, the blood demon art of the progenitor of demons, and his connection to the Infinity Castle. Coming to Muzan, his blood demon art is that of a shapeshifter. While flesh manipulation is an ability possessed by every demon, Muzan truly takes it up a notch with his, manipulating his body at will in whatever ways he sees fit. This allows him to not only create grotesque structures or whip-like appendages to take down others or for combat, but also lets him manipulate his flesh, organs, and appearance as a whole. He can move his organs around, change the color of his eyes, which he did in front of Akaza, and even acquire new disguises such as turning into a child. In fact, Muzan has been shapeshifting in a manner so refined that he can change his appearance and exist in the human world. We witnessed this firsthand during the meeting of the lower moons in the Infinity Castle following the death of Rui, when Muzan appears as a woman to the other demons. In fact, the lower ranks were fooled at the sight of him, with one wondering who the woman was until Muzan spoke. We've already mentioned how Muzan killed the lower moons barring Enmu, who he gave a higher dose of his blood by the end of the meeting. This too was done by means of his shapeshifting ability, as he contorted his left arm into a monstrous, grotesque-looking appendage with several eyes and mouths moving on the surface. After he was attacked by Ubuyashiki's explosion, Tamayo's poison, and the demon slayer Hashira's, Muzan needed refuge within the Infinity Castle once more, as he needed time to heal himself from such extreme damage, especially because Tamayo had injected him with a poison that would turn him back into his weak human form. While the regeneration would have been easy for him, he needed time to dissolve Tamayo's poison, and as such, turned into a gigantic cocoon made of flesh while his upper ranks fought the demon slayers in the Infinity Castle. After more or less healing, or so he believed, Muzan adopted a form more suited for battle as he emerged from his cocoon. He grew jaws all over and used them to kill and consume some of the weaker members of the Demon Slayer Corps who were also in the Infinity Castle. This allowed him to recover his strength even better, gearing him up for combat against the stronger Demon Slayers, more specifically Tanjiro and the Hashiras. During the long, drawn-out battle, Muzan manipulated his flesh to create long appendages that moved like whips with the sharpness of swords. He had previously used this battle against Yorichi Sugikuni, the creator of the sun-breathing technique, but of course was taken down easily by the ingenious swordsman. Things were different in the present, as there was no one of Yorichi's caliber, allowing Muzan to engage in a more drawn-out battle. He grew more of these appendages from all over his body, such as his thighs, back, and arms, freely using them, manipulating their shapes mid-battle and making them move in whichever way he deemed necessary, especially due to him fighting several opponents at once. As we saw during the lower rank meeting, Muzan once again grew mouths on these appendages, this time with suction, in order to suck in his opponent and then cut them down. To top that off, he created a gigantic mouth on his torso with the ability to release a huge energy blast from it that operated like a shockwave. Technically, shockwave generation and suction are not part of his abilities, but are a result of his biokinesis. He even tried to bite off Tanjiro's head by turning his mouth into a huge opening with sharp teeth. Considering Muzan was something of a scientist himself, as he was always in his study, experimenting and trying to come up with a cure for his weakness to sunlight, he had a full grasp of the sciences and could use the knowledge to his benefit for his shapeshifting. This proves to us how the ability in the hands of someone who did not possess his level of knowledge would not have been this formidable. The fact that he has lived for around 1,000 years makes it even more insane, as he's acquired the necessary practice and information for a millennia. As the battle continued, Muzan manipulated his formerly humanoid anatomy to adopt a more monstrous working, acquiring 5 brains and 7 hearts, all of which were constantly in motion to avoid being taken down at once. Having multiple key organs also prevented him from being defeated via decapitation. The only way out was by taking them down all at once, which would weaken him significantly, but this too was foiled by the organs being in motion, which is what led to Tanjiro perfecting the Hinokami Kagura. Otherwise, requiring simple regeneration only would do little to foil foil Muzan, as he could just split himself into thousands of pieces to escape and regenerate once more, which is what he did after he was almost defeated by Yoriichi. With the arrival of dawn, Muzan was in danger as sunlight was a huge weakness to him. He had been pinned down by Tanjiro and couldn't move, especially with Tamayo's poison already having done the necessary damage, making him age. He caused his flesh to swell up in a state of panic and adopted the form of a giant infant. In this position, he could take enormous damage and was unbelievably durable. But when all seemed lost, Muzan concentrated all of his power to one end and passed everything down to Tanjiro, hoping to continue being alive through him, as he expected Tanjiro to become a demon who would be immune to the sun, considering his sister had attained the sun immunity. Of course, this was because the Kamado siblings had once consumed a soup which was made with the blue spider lily when they were sick, which was the very flower Muzan had been searching for desperately but couldn't find, as it only bloomed in the presence of sunlight. Other than that, Muzan's biokinetic abilities allowed him to create puppets of himself made of his own flesh, detached from his body while he could still command them. In fact, he could manipulate every demon, as demons were created from his blood, and as such, that meant they were extensions of his flesh in some small ways. This is how he was able to fight for control of Nakime's body during a battle of dominance with Yushiro. This was also how the Kibutsuji curse worked, with Muzan's appendages taking out a demon by tearing them apart from the inside if they uttered the word Kibutsuji, as seen with Susumaru, that is the dodgeball demon from the Asakusa arc in Season 1. As she uttered his name, his cells from the blood within her took over and killed her, even though it was an honest mistake on her part. The issue with this control over the demons, however, is that it required a good amount of concentration, a privilege he was denied while trying to gain control of Nakime and, by extension, the Infinity Castle, considering he was being jumped by so many Hashiras and demon slayers. He ultimately had to deal with the situation by killing Nakime with his cells in her blood, crushing her head, explaining that while the Kibutsuji curse may be automatically activated with his name being uttered by a demon, he could kill a demon either way from a far-off distance. Other demons could also fight this control over Muzan, with the likes of Tamayo and Nezuko managing to break out of it to the point that Muzan could not track them down. This also meant that he could not randomly kill them, as their wills had overridden his. However, for those he could control, he could even read their thoughts as he had access to their minds. Muzan could have full conversation with demons telepathically, one of the best examples being the meeting of the Upper Moons after the defeat of Gyutaro, as the demons had gathered in a hall within the Infinity Castle, while Muzan was still located deep within the fortress in his study. During the Infinity Castle arc, he did this again as he interacted with Akaza and Kokushibo, prompting the former to keep fighting and taking information from the latter about the Hashiras. Overall, Muzan's control over other demons was a huge reason behind their great fear and respect for him. Had Nezuko or Tamayo not broken out of his control, they would have been toast long before. Distance matters too, though, as Muzan's control over a demon is reduced with greater distances. But because the demons were always only in Japan due to their search for the blue spider lily, the situation of Muzan not being able to access a demon under his control didn't arise. Muzan did end up getting access to Tamayo once more after he absorbed her right before they all fell into the Infinity Castle. This gave him access to Tamayo's memories once more and allowed him to know what kind of injection she had used on him. Initially, Tamayo's consciousness resisted Muzan's prying, but he was able to force his will and get the necessary information by literally watching her memories. As the progenitor of demon kind, Muzan was the only one who could kill other demons without requiring Nichiren swords or implying sunlight in his arsenal due to his cells flowing within them. At one point, he was shown punishing Akaza by causing his cells to decay throughout his body, leaving him with injuries he couldn't regenerate from. Meanwhile, he would be able to heal from temporary injuries caused by Nichiren swords and sunlight, provided he was still alive. He could even sense what the other demons were sensing, but this ability had a flaw. If the demon's perception was being fooled, Muzan too would experience the same. In conclusion, every special ability Muzan possessed was an extension of his blood demon art of biokinesis. This is also how he gets the demons in the Infinity Castle. Muzan knows their locations because of their link and relays this information to Nakime, making her open portals right where they are, mostly under their feet, to cause the demons to randomly fall and appear within the castle. One can assume that there's a chance Muzan's link to the other demons might not work if the demon is within the Infinity Castle while Muzan is not, as the castle exists within an alternate pocket dimension, but then again, Muzan must know where the Infinity Castle manifests. And anytime a demon is present in the castle, so is Muzan, considering that's his base of operations unless he's out and about. Marvelous verdict! Because Muzan can override the will of demons, we can conclude that, if necessary, he can become the manipulator of the Infinity Castle. He probably does not do so until Yushiro has control over Nakime due to the part about him requiring a lot of concentration. Hypothetically speaking though, if Nakime managed to break free of Muzan's will like Nezuko, Muzan would lose access to the Infinity Castle, but fortunately for him, she was extremely loyal to him from the very beginning. With that, today's marvelous video comes to an end. Do you have anything to add about the castle? Did you enjoy this video? If so, then don't forget to like and comment down below. Until next time, thanks for watching, stay safe out there, and have a marvelous day.